Good evening, good morning, good day. Welcome to the Paranormal Zone, where we look into witches, paranormal, UFO, UAVs from many different views. And we accept everybody's view because everybody's view is a little different and it's interesting. It makes for an interesting look at the field overall. But today we're going to be discussing probably one of my favorite holidays. And Bob Mcdermott's here with me. Bob, welcome. You're back from your little excursion. Thank you. Halloween, is that one of your favorite days of the year?
It is. It really is one of my favorite. I think it's a time when, similar to Christmas, I guess, that everybody really participates in it, especially, obviously, the kids.
Yes. But before we talk about Halloween, I have a big event coming up this weekend, the Hilldale Cemetery, Haunted Hilldale Walk. It's $15 per person. It is Halloween season, and there's a lot of great paranormal activity in this 1859 graveyard. We run a lot of events there, and everybody leaves happy, and some people still talk about it today that were there years ago. And, Bob, we got another big event coming up, don't we? We got a couple big events coming up, but we got one coming up.
Yeah, we do. We're going back to the Sandown Train Depot, which is a very historical train station in Sandown, New Hampshire. It's always been a great event there. And it's to raise some money for the Sandown Historical Society. With federal funding being cut all over the place in a lot of areas, one of our concerns, Tom, and I know it's one of yours, is that these historical buildings take a lot of money to maintain them. So anything we can do to help them. But it's October 10th, 7 to 9 o'clock. Essex County Ghost Project is the lead investigation group on it. You guys always do a great job. Our guests that show up that night will walk away very satisfied, I'm sure.
Right now, Bob, you guys were the one that turned Essex County onto this. So let's be, you were the first there. I mean, when you had New England NEPA, and that was years ago.
I think that for the most part, most of us in the world of paranormal get along pretty well.
Yes.
And I think that lots of kudos to you and your team because you guys have always been sharing and cooperative with everybody. And I think that's what the world of paranormal has to do today, Tom. It's this business of it's mine, I protect it, only I run it, only I do it. We gotta get away from that because all teams have different ways of doing things and different ideas about things, and that needs to be shared with the public. So I think a lot of teams should.
Oops. We had a technical difficulty, folks. Major technical difficulty. The phone actually hung up on us. That is odd. Wow. Bob, you there? Yeah, that was the ghost in the machine. We got disconnected somehow. That was weird. Sorry about that. All of a sudden, you were gone. It had to be the ghost in the machine.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I got you back now, though.
Okay. So as we were saying, you brought Essex County on to that location, okay? So this is, you started that over there. So we don't want to give it all away, but can you explain some of the paranormal activity that has happened in what now Essex County calls the Sandown Triangle at the Sandown train station?
Yeah, at the train station, we've had some, it's almost like the meeting house that we've been going to for years.
Which we'll talk about in a minute.
We've done the train station so many times that the energy in the building and in the train car is very familiar with us. So what we tend to do is when we get there, we make contact pretty quickly. The train car that we will set up an investigator in there, and we'll rotate the groups in. So if you're coming down October 10th, you will see all three locations inside the train station and the train car. And you know, the energy has always been very cooperative with us. It seems to enjoy that evening. So this should be a great event for us.
Yes, I mean, we've gotten some shadow figures. I did when we were there outside the depot, right on the deck, closer to where you park. Obviously, the train tracks that go over there, there's some interesting feels that psychics have picked up through the years, but we're going to wait and let people see what they pick up. And then we got the train car that I did a small investigation in there, but you've done more work in there.
In the train car.
Yeah, in the train car. And then obviously we got the main station where you got the main part of the building. It is a museum too, so it's not like you're going to be walking into a train station. Oh, and there are no trains that drive by there anymore, so we don't have to worry about dealing with that. And then you have the area where the old guy would sit and control the tracks, and that is a real interesting room. Personally, I channeled in that room sitting at the desk of where the guy who would control the tracks and tell people to board the train.
Yeah. You know, the other thing, Tom, we usually get great crowds coming out to both that and the Sandown Meeting House.
Yes.
You know, that's another place that people just like because, frankly, even if you're not 100% into the paranormal, to come down and see this historical train station and stand there knowing people use this, 100 plus years ago, I guess, right? So,
they used it right through World War II.
Yeah, I mean, it's phenomenal. And if you're familiar with New Hampshire, this train bed runs all the way, I mean, I think it runs all the way from Haverhill, doesn't it? All the way into Epping?
It actually goes further than that. I believe it runs close to the Downeaster line. So I know it goes into Epping. I know it goes further up. There are maps all over showing where that line goes to. It's really interesting.
Yeah. So it's quite the sight to see. So come on down and enjoy it. The Sandown Historical Society always puts out snacks and beverages, and it'll be a great night. And, bring the kids. The only thing we tell you is that you got to know your own children. We really don't know what we're going to run into. So far, every event we've done down at the Sandown train station has been, I would say, positive, friendly energy. Wouldn't you, Tom?
Yes, very friendly, very positive.
Yeah, so I think kids at certain ages, but parents have to make that decision.
Yes, they do. Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. Now, listen, tonight's kind of a special show. It's kind of unique for you and I because this is the first show we've done without a guest.
Right, it is. And before
Tag,
yeah.
You become our guest for the evening.
Oh, okay. But before we get into that, we got to let people know what time the train station is open at.
Yeah, we're going to go from 7 to 9. We'll probably start off, the agenda will look something like, we'll probably talk about Paranormal 101, give everybody a little bit of history of the train station. We'll certainly, break into some sort of groups so that everybody can rotate through. And once the three groups have rotated to the three different areas inside the big hall inside the train station, the front room, and then onto the train car. At the end of that rotation, we'll just allow people to go back to any place that they would like to see again. And right now, our plan is to have investigators at all three locations. They're happy to answer any questions about the equipment we're using, about the energy we're reaching. So it's a great way to learn a little bit about the paranormal and have a great evening, too.
Right. So, that's going to be a fun night. And then following that, we're going to be at the Sandown Meeting House. And then we'll get into the the other part of the show. Let's talk about Sandown Meeting House.
The Sandown Meeting House. So, you and I have done that many, many times. And for anyone who hasn't gone there, again, it's very much like the train station. If you're not into the paranormal, 100%, that's okay, because the Sandown Meeting House is one of the few original meeting houses in New England today. So what I mean by that is nothing inside has changed since 1754. It's all original. There's no heat, no lights, no bathrooms. When you walk into that building, you're walking back into history. And so if you're a history buff, please come down, enjoy it. I know we've got some plans to do that night. We're going to do an investigation, and that house is always active. We've never not had great positive activity in that house.
Right. So, yeah, we're very excited about that one, the meeting house, too. And then, of course, before we get into what we're going to discuss tonight, both those locations are located in the historic part of town, but also in the Sandown Triangle. That was actually something. See, when we investigate, I always look at what's going on in the neighborhood and what's going on around. And we've actually picked up a few homes in the neighborhood. And, of course, Bob, your huge thing now is UFOs. And I've said this a couple times on air, but we'll say it again. Well, we're at Zavino Vineyards for a wedding there near Halloween a couple of years back when I was there. Right. We actually saw a couple of things. Saw two hot dog-shaped UFOs fly along the tree line. And the people getting married did not believe in the paranormal at all. So that was kind of cool. But there's a lot of stuff that goes on. And then, of course, you have, not too far from there is the Danville Monkey. We're not sure if it was a monkey or not. We think it was. That was back in the 90s, not that long ago, compared to some stories. And then you got the Danville Beehive. So, I mean, that whole area is exquisite with energies from the past that draw in to the future.
Yeah, it really is a great spot. Both spots are really fabulous to go to.
Yes, it is. So we're hoping you can make both events. And how much are these events, Bob?
Well, the Sandown Train Depot is going to be a request of a $10 donation, but it's only a donation. I think one of the things our listeners have to understand is that 101% of any money that you give goes towards the Historical Society, towards the restoration.
You there? Oh, we had another ghost attack tonight. Hold on 1 second. This has been an interesting night. That's the second time the phone shut off. And we paid the phone bill. So it's real interesting what's going on here. That's for sure. So we will continue the show. We don't know what's going on with Bob. You there? All right. So as Bob was saying, 101% of the money raised for the Sandown train station goes back to the Sandown Historical Society. So a $10 donation for a ghost tour of 3 buildings is reasonably cheap. If you went on any of these major tours, even down in the great city of Salem. Oh, hold on a second. Hold on a second here. Bob's calling in. Hey, Bob.
The spirit's a little angry. We don't have a guest tonight or something.
Yeah, so we'll just use my phone tonight. Okay. We just got to switch over. So let's finish up with the Sandown Sandown Depot. You there? Oop.
Yep.
All right. So how much is it again?
Okay, so they're looking for a $10 donation, at the door. That will be collected by the Historical Society. And I said before, if our listeners didn't hear it, that 101% of all money raised that night will go towards the Sandown Historical Society restoration. So when you're looking at the volunteers from Essex County Ghost Project, Skywatchers New England, they're not making any money or taking any proceeds out of that. So everything goes there. So again, if you want to help with the restoration of historical buildings in Sandown, come on down.
Right, and $10 isn't a lot of money compared to what places are getting today. $125 for a small tour. We're going to be there 6 to 9. It might even run a little later too. We don't know.
Yeah, good. And again, remember that's a donation. That's
yes.
not mandatory to get in. So,
no.
You know, one thing about the Sandown Historical Society folks, they're very flexible. We recognize people might come with 3 or 4 or 5 people, and certainly, you know, there's adjustments to be made for all that. So don't worry about the money. Just come on down and have fun.
Right, and the Sandown Meeting House, how much is that?
You know, we haven't really set that yet. Again, that's another donation to either the old meeting house, that preservation of that building, or maybe another charity that we pick that night. But again, it's important to understand any money that you do donate goes to either a charity or to the Historical Society for restoration purposes.
Yes, that is correct. So no money is being made by anybody but a nonprofit or a charity.
That's correct.
The Sandown. So that's donation too. Where can you go and enjoy 2 beautiful historical buildings during the month of Halloween for a donation?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun. And again, you can bring your children.
Right.
You know, bring recorders, cameras. We encourage people to take pictures. You might catch some orbs. You might catch some shadow figures. Bring a recorder if you have just a digital tape recorder. It may catch your voice. So it's an exciting, fun evening. We usually have crowds, you know, well over the 40s and 50s that show up, so number-wise. So, again, come on down to both events. We'd like to see you. Gives you a chance to talk to paranormal groups. I know, Tom, that we've invited some of our friends.
Yes.
Mike Stevens, for example, and, you know, those guys and girls. So I'm looking forward to it.
And what time are we starting the meeting house at?
Well, I think we probably start that. You know, I usually open the house on a Saturday about 4 o'clock for people that want to kind of Miranda in and look at the place and everything. I think we'll probably get rolling around 7 o'clock at night. You know, speeches will be at a minimum, and we'll get right to the investigation. Right,
exactly. So, yeah, right around 6:30, 7 o'clock, we will be there to start. But you want to get there early and take some great pictures. And, of course, we're in fall foliage season, and this place is tucked away. There's houses around it, but with the fall foliage, especially early on, you might get some great foliage pictures, too.
Yeah, and, you know, it's another very, like you point out, it's very picturesque, if you will, the building itself. So if you get there during the daylight hours, you can take some great pictures of the meeting house itself. You know, I think, too, Tom, we should take a second and mention that, you know, there's a great little variety store right in town if you want to stop in there and grab cold drinks, snacks, whatever.
Right.
And then there's a restaurant, an ice cream place right there, right next to the train depot. So, you know, you might grab a bite to eat before you come over. Right,
exactly. So, I mean, and those are
very big sponsors of the Historical Society. So, again, by shopping in those places, you're just helping the Historical Society also.
Correct, and because they donate to them every year. It's very important when you talk about nonprofits. It doesn't matter, Sandown Meeting House, Sandown Train Station, Danville Historical, Portsmouth Historical, New York Historical Society in the great state of New York. I mean, they still need donations to run. and they rely on their sponsors. So going to visit their sponsors and, is helping out those organizations too.
Correct. That's absolutely correct.
Because without sponsorships, you can never raise enough money doing anything. Sponsorships is and will always be the main source of income for nonprofits to survive. Without sponsorships, they're dead in the water. And then you go...
Well, Tom, you and I for 25 years have been in a nonprofit hobby, so we more than understand what it takes to fund some of these events and stuff. And,
right.
They invest money to fund these, too. It isn't just all profit to them. They've got to put money in. So any help you can give them is well received.
Any help at all. And then we also, there's other things going on. You can check out the Essex County Ghost Project Facebook page because there's events almost every night somewhere. Some of them are private, some of them are public.
Mentioning is that, Essex County Ghost Project and Skywatchers of New England, we're always looking for new people to join and get interested in the paranormal. You don't have to know a lot about it. We'll train you. It doesn't cost anything to join.
Nope.
So if you have some interest about joining a group like this and you want to talk to some people, that's a great night to come down and do that too.
Yes, it is, actually. And if you want to reach out to me or Bob, you can get it through the Essex County Facebook page. You can call me directly at 978-376-2807, or you can reach Bob through the Paranormal Zone page, because he runs that for us. Thanks, Bob. Or you can reach Bob through, what's the other page you got that they can reach you at? New Hampshire?
Yeah, they can send an email to paranormalnh@yahoo.com. We have Skywatchers of New England Facebook page. So, the best thing to do, Thomas, is send me an email direct. I answer every single email I get, so you won't be lost in the shuffle. Again, it's paranormalnh@yahoo.com, all small letters, no caps. And I'll answer any questions I can, and I'll refer you to any of the Facebook pages we have for if you want to look around.
Exactly. So this is going to be a fun time. Very fun time. Halloween is, this is my favorite month of the year. Let's face that reality. It is. So, all right.
Well, you're also tonight going to share, I think, a real interesting story with us, because through folklore, there is always some truth to folklore as we go back in history. And I think it's interesting to have a historian like yourself on talking about how things like Halloween started, what it was in the beginning, and what it's evolved out to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really interested in hearing this. So let's start off by you telling us, what's the origins of Halloween?
Well, the origins of Halloween are real interesting. We all know, most people, that it's a religious holiday for but in different ways, okay? So some people go, oh, I don't like demons and ghosts and this, that, and the other thing, and people running around with masks. That's scary. It's against religion. Whoa, put the brakes on, folks, because Halloween, or Halloween, less commonly known as Halloween, or All Hallows Eve, or All Saints Eve. All Saints Eve. Doesn't sound scary or demonic or anything like that, does it so far? Because it doesn't to me. It's a celebration observed in many countries on October 31st, the eve of the Western Christian feast of All Saints' Day. Now remember, we have Christmas Eve and Christmas Day too, So you have Holy Saturday and Easter Sunday in the Christian belief. So you always have something going on, okay? So it begins with the observance of All Hallow Tide, the time in the literal year dedicated to remembering the dead, including saints, hallows, martyrs, and all the faithful departed. Don't we say that? If you go to church on Sunday, some churches say, remember all the faithful departed?
Right.
One theory holds that Halloween's traditions was influenced by Celtic harvest festivals, particularly in the Gaelic festival of Samhain. I always pronounce that wrong. Samhin, which are believed to have pagan roots. Not a big surprise. A lot of the Catholic holidays and religious holidays we celebrate today have pagan roots. So this isn't anything groundbreaking unless, some go further and suggest that Samhain have been Christianized as All Hallows Day, along with the Eve. By the early church, other academics believe Halloween began solely as a Christian holiday, being a vigil of All Hallows Day, celebrated in Ireland, Scotland, for centuries. Irish and Scottish immigrants took many Halloween customs to North America in the 19th century. So for us in America, this is a relatively new holiday. This isn't, we're not centuries old here in this country anyhow, but, it's relatively new. So, other countries in the late 20th, and early 21st century, people of Halloween activities, including trick-or-treating, or related to guising or souling, attending Halloween costume parties, carrying pumpkins or turning turnips into jack-o'-lanterns, lighting bonfires, apple bobbling, which you'll never get me to do, divination games, I've played a few of those in my life, playing pranks, I think we've all done that, visiting haunted attractions, I think we've all done that, Bob. And
Spooky World comes to mind.
Yeah, and telling scary stories, telling scary stories and watching horror or Halloween-themed films. The only stuff is I can go deal with the devil, but make me watch Halloween haunted shows, and I'm up for 2 or 3 days, and I don't get why that happens, but that happens to me.
There's one channel on that's going to have 31 Halloween-type movies on for the month of October.
Yes.
Every day they have a different movie.
So that should be fun. My favorite Halloween movie is, guess what?
What is it?
I might be 40. I might be 84. No, I'm sorry. I'm 48. Darn it. My favorite movie is Charlie Brown's Halloween.
Oh, Halloween.
Yeah. There's an oldie but goodie. Watching and then some people practice the Christian observance of All Hallows Eve, including attending church services, lighting candles on graves of the dead. Although it is a secular celebration for others, some Christians historically abstained from meat on All Hallows Eve, a tradition that reflected in eating of certain vegetarian foods on this vigil day, including apples, potatoes, pancakes, and soul cakes.
Wow.
I'll take a half dozen pancakes with cheese, please.
Well, let me ask you a question. I
Yeah.
don't want to put you on the spot.
No.
But Halloween comes to this country with at least a basis of religious content, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So where does it transform itself into this, what we know as today, this kind of scary, dress in scary outfits, watch scary movies? Does it just transition in there normally, or did something push it that way?
Well, it started pushing later on. As we get further into the story of Halloween, you'll see it.
Okay.
But, so the word, like I said, it's Saints' Evening, okay? It's Christian-based, right? So the Christian origins, Halloween is through the influence of the Christian beliefs and practices. The English word Halloween comes from All Hallows Eve, as we know, and it's the evening before the Christian holy days. All Hallows Day is All Saints Day on November 1st, All Souls Day on November 2nd, and the time of the early church, there were major feasts of celebrating, such as Christmas and Easter. So this celebration kept going on and on and on and on and on. And then in the 8th century, Pope Gregory, that was a little while back, 1731 to 1741, found an order at St. Peter's for the relics of the holy apostles and all the saints and martyrs. So that's when it became everything out in November. And they say it was on Palm Sunday in April. So, I mean, there's a lot of things going on early on, very early on. And then, as things change, then you get, so let's leave the Christian stuff behind, right? And we all know what happened in 1776, right? We threw the British out of here. But before that, we were British up here, at least in colonial New England. I mean, we had some French along the Ohio River Valley for, the people listening out there. And, of course, California was settled by the Spaniards, and northern Florida area was also Spanish, but the Spaniards, not Spanish. And in Britain, the customs came under attack under the Reformation as Protestants berated purgatory as popish doctrine, incomparable to the Calvinist doctrine of pedestrian, and state-sanctioned ceremonies associated with the intercession of the saints, prayer for the souls in purgatory, were abolished by the Elizabethan reform. Through All Hallows Day remained an English liturgical on the calendar. It commemorated the saints of godly human beings. So, then that started. And then later on, we had the Gaelic folk come in. So today's Halloween customs are thought to have influenced by folk customs, beliefs in the Celtic-speaking countries, some in which are believed to have pagan roots. So that's when this really got moving, So this is a little bit later on. Samarian, which is 1 day in the quarter days of the medieval Gaelic calendar, and has been celebrated on 31 of October, November 1st in Ireland, Scotland, and the Isles of Man. A kindred festival has been held by Brittonic Celts called the Caelan Gaelf, Gaeof, in Wales, or Caelan Gwa in Cromwell, or Caelan Gonu in Brittany, naming meaning the first day of winter. For the Celts, the day ended and began at sunset. For the Celts, the day ended and began at sunset. Thus, the festival begins in the evening before November 1st by modern reckoning. Samarian is mentioned in some of the earliest Irish literature, and the names have been used by historians to refer to Celtic Halloween customs in the 19th century. So now we're moving towards, us. So this continued, and then they started doing the food thing. The souls of the dead were also said to be revisited in their homes, seeking hospitality. So you'd set the dinner table, and you'd have an empty seat that you would serve for the spirit of your loved one. So this really started to grow in the 16th, 17th, 18th centuries out in Wales. And then it started moving things a little differently, and these festivals started popping up. Then later on, Anglican colonists from southern United States and the Catholic colonists in Maryland recognized All Hallows Eve in their church calendar, although Puritans in New England strongly opposed the holiday. That's kind of funny because we're the leading Halloween place in America right now. I don't know what happened to Maryland and the southern states, but that got interesting there. So the Puritans and so the early puritanical almanacs did not have Halloween. It wasn't until after the Irish and Scottish immigration in the 19th century that Halloween became a major holiday in America. Most Americans' Halloween traditions were inherited from the Irish and the Scots, though in the Cajun areas a nocturnal mass was said in cemeteries on Halloween night. Candles that had been blessed were placed on graves, and families sometimes spent the entire night at the graveside. Originally confined to these immigrant communities, it was gratefully assimilated into mainstream society as we celebrate and the American influence. Now, Salem, Halloween took over big. That was started, and I always forget the gentleman's name. He was the former sheriff of Essex County, Massachusetts, who really blew this up. He wrote a lot of books on this, a lot of pamphlet books on early history of New England. Here's an interesting fact that's not written down. But back when the witches, and I put witches in quotes, and we'll get to that in a minute. We're not going to discuss witches the whole time, but we'll get back to that in a minute. You put witches in quotes because they weren't really witches. That's number one. When the sheriff, the original sheriff of Essex County, when this happened in the 1600s, hung the first witch, before she went down, she put a curse on everybody that's ever been the county sheriff. Now, we have no more county government in Massachusetts, but we still elect the Essex County Sheriff's Department, the Plymouth County, and all the other counties in Massachusetts. And their job is to run the jail. They're administrators. They're not dealing with the population. But every sheriff that we've had ever since that curse has died a mysterious death.
Really?
Yes. Not everybody. There are still some sheriffs still alive today, so I'm hoping this thing breaks because you never know when it's going to strike.
So we're writing that, or at least the accusation is that it was this curse that this individual who was probably convicted of witchcraft at the time was hung. And she is the one that started this curse.
Right.
Correct?
That is correct.
Wow.
And what's interesting is the witch hysteria. Okay? Yeah. We all go to Salem to enjoy Salem. When I go to Salem, I go to enjoy what Salem is. A shipping community with a former red light district that's now a bourgeoisie city to live in. Okay? And I go for the fun. Yes, running around with costumes is fun for a day. You can walk the whole city streets with a costume and nobody looks at you weird because everybody's dressed up for the most part. You get some great food down there. But where were the witches? Were they in Salem? Well, Bob, you think they were from Salem or somewhere else?
I don't know, because we've talked about, we'll probably do a show on the Salem witch trials, which into itself is a historical...
Right, exactly. So that's why we're going to breeze over this quickly. We'll save a show for the Salem witch trials. But to make matters, to just breeze this quickly, I'm going to tell you right now there were more convicted witches in what is today Andover, North Andover, called Andover back then. There was a convicted witch out of my hometown of Methuen, which was then Haverhill. So most of your convicted witches came from Salem Village. So you would think, oh, Salem Village must be Salem, Mass. Nope. It's Danvers.
Right.
So
wasn't most of the actual trials held in Salem itself?
That's why Salem's taking credit for this, because that was the county seat.
Okay, right.
Before Essex County, this area was Norfolk County. Then when the county lines changed, we became Essex County, and Salem became the seat for the judges. In fact, the judge on the trial was actually from Haverhill. He's buried in Haverhill, Judge Saltonstall.
Right.
So we're not going to go any further with the witch thing because we want to save a show for that. We want to keep people. going on that. So let's get back to the symbols of Halloween. Ooh, we all know the symbols, right? Skeletons, witches, the development of artifacts and the symbols associated with Halloween formed over time. Jack-o'-lanterns are traditionally carried by, are traditionally carried by guises of All Hallows Eve in order to frighten evil spirits. The popular Irish Christian folktale associated with the jack-o'-lantern, which in folklore is said to represent a soul who has been denied entry on both heaven and hell. We won't. That's a long thing to get into. We'll just leave it at that. There is the folklore songs here, but when in Ireland and Scotland, though, the turnip was traditionally carved during Halloween by immigrants to North America, used native pumpkins, which is both much softer and much larger, making it easier to carry than a turnip. In the American tradition of carving pumpkins, it goes back to 1837. And it was originally associated with harvest time in general, not becoming specifically associated with Halloween till the mid to late 19th century. Modern imagery of Halloween comes from sources that include Christian astrology, national customs or works of Gothic and horror literature, such as novels, Frankenstein, and the modern Prometheus and in Dracula, the classic horror film, such as Frankenstein in 1931, The Mummy in 1932. Imagery of the skull referenced Goliath of the Christian tradition serves as a reminder of death and transitory to the quality of human life. And Conquery found the Memento Mori and Vastas of compositions. Skulls, therefore, been commonplace in Halloween, which touches this theme traditionally back the walls of churches. Checking over here what's going on. So that's what's going on with that stuff. And then
So let me interrupt you for a second, just so that this is a convoluted question, because Halloween launched the interest in pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns, or do jack-o'-lanterns and pumpkins launch the interest in Halloween? So way back when it first started, do people say we should use pumpkins because?
No. This was started later on. The Irish and the Celts actually used not pumpkins, they used turnips.
Okay.
And if you ever tried to carve a turnip, it's not easy.
Pretty difficult.
Right. So when they came to America, they went, oh, pumpkins were native to America. I mean, that was the first Thanksgiving, as we know. We're not talking about Thanksgiving, but we can see how far pumpkins go back, right?
Well, that's right. Yeah.
So
I think Halloween may have picked up on that because of the ease of carving them.
Correct. And it would work. It did the same thing the turnip would do, but it made it a heck of a lot easier to carve. And they were bigger, because turnips are not that big.
And the other thing in this country, at least this country, because of the Pilgrims and so forth, pumpkins were very popular for a very long time and still are.
Correct. And people love carving their pumpkins.
Abundance of pumpkins. I mean, anywhere you drive, in New England, like at least this time of the year, all you see is pumpkin patches.
Right. And if you go to the traditional New England fairs that we have, what do they have? Pumpkin contest and pumpkin carving contest. So it's a New England thing.
Yeah.
So that's what really started moving this. And the New England traditions, they added to the Halloween that was being brought over from other countries, and they added their own flair to it.
Right.
And then, of course, trick-or-treating comes up. Who didn't love trick-or-treating as a kid?
Yeah.
If I could get away with it now, I'd go trick-or-treating.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it.
Big thing back, of course, I'm older than dirt, but that was a very big thing when I was a kid. and frankly, not to get off the subject, but back then, I'm not going to tell you my age, but way back then, you didn't really have the threat of safety as much as you do today.
No, you didn't. No.
I think when we got a little bit older, older being preteen, we would go into other neighborhoods other than just our own.
Right.
I think today, Tom, that, a lot of communities, I know in New Hampshire we're doing a lot of, I think they call it, and I apologize if I don't have the right phrase, but I think it's called trunk or treat.
It is. They do that in Mass, too. It's trunk or treat. Yep.
Yeah, where they gather in a parking lot, a bunch of people, mostly community folks, and they actually give out candy and so forth to children in costume out of the trunk of their car.
Right.
Being they're very safe and secure that they're not getting anything bad.
Right. So,
Right.
Added to that, though, trunk or treat works good, but the other thing that's happened with trick-or-treating is we all knew when I was a kid, we trick-or-treated on Halloween night. That was it. Okay? Now you have one community doing it the week before, one doing it the week after. Not many do it on Halloween. So now what's happening is it's become a burden for a lot of people. So you see less and less lights every year. And the reason for that is when you were a kid and I was a kid, and I'm a little bit older than you, Bob. Oh, wait a minute, maybe younger. We would walk the neighborhood, maybe walk somebody else's neighborhood when we got a little older, like in our preteens, right? Dressed up as anybody we wanted to be, from, Archie back in the day to a bear to... Yep. I dressed up as grapes one year. My mother made us costumes. We were grapes. Made with paper and green balloons. Those were the days when you made your own costumes. Those were fun than buying them today. A couple of years I went as a police officer and an agent, whatever. But today...
It's interesting, too, Tom, that Halloween costumes follow the trends of that time.
Correct.
For example, Star Wars, when Star Wars was popular in the movies, a lot of kids were dressing as Star Wars.
Right, exactly. Right. And in the 80s, the late 70s, early 80s, yeah. And the other thing is, what I was getting to at is, you have all these trick-or-treats in different communities. Now, people are just dropping kids off at every community. And so say one town does it the week before, everybody from the surrounding town shows up.
Right.
And that's why there's less and less people putting their lights on, too, I've noticed, driving around on those nights.
Yeah, I've noticed that, too. Again, when I was younger, decorating your home for Halloween was not as popular as Christmas, obviously, but
right.
It certainly was popular. You saw a lot of homes with pumpkins outside and black and orange lights and so forth. And I don't see as much of that today as we used to see. No.
So let me just do this real quick here about trick-or-treating, and then we'll move on to the next. We're moving the show real good tonight. We're having almost all this fun. So trick-or-treating is customary celebration for children of Halloween. Children go in costumes from house to house, knock on the door, trick-or-treat, asking for treats such as candy. Sometimes you might get a couple bucks or a couple pennies, or a quarter, with the question, trick or treat. The word trick implies a way to perform mischief on the homeowners on their property, and the treat is given. So that's interesting in itself. I mean, everybody has to watch their, In Scotland, children disguised in costumes going from door to door for food or coins. So in Scotland, they didn't give candy away. They actually gave food away. So that's even more interesting. I mean, and they're disguised carrying their lanterns made out of scooped out turnip and visit homes and reward with cakes, fruit, or money. In Ireland, most popular phrase for the kids to shout until were help the Halloween party. That's what they used till 2008. The practice was guising Halloween in North America was recorded in 1911. Where the paper in Kingston, Ontario, Canada reported children going guising around the neighborhood. And then in 1919, an American historian named Ruth Edna Kelly of Massachusetts, big surprise, wrote the first length book of the history of Halloween in the United States called The Book of Halloween, 1919.
Right.
So, and then thousands of Halloween postcards were produced between the turn of the 19th and 20th century. If you're a postcard collector, you would know that because there's so many of them out there. Trick-or-treating does not seem to have become widespread practice in North America until the 1930s. The first appearance of the term in 1934 was first used by a national publication in 1939. I mean, you're getting into my grandparents' age now.
Yeah, so let me ask you this question. Is it fair to say, am I accurate saying that it had at least a religious foundation to start with?
It did. That is correct.
Okay. So why didn't any religion, let's not pick on one over another, but any religion, why didn't they continue that into to today? I mean, why did they give up the religious part of it? If you look at Christmas, it's still very much a religious holiday, Hanukkah, Christmas,
right.
Whatever you want to define.
Whatever you're celebrating, right?
The basis of it is very religious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know why.
Why do you think, I'm just asking your opinion, why do you think that religion kind of gave up on Halloween?
That's a good question, and I can't really answer it. I mean, I've looked into it many years. I've done the Halloween talk at libraries. I've been on WHAV doing it on Halloween morning. They celebrate Halloween as Halloween, but then that's October 31st. You don't hear anything about All Saints Day anymore. Even growing up, me in a Catholic household, I don't ever remember celebrating All Saints Day.
Right. Well, I bring that up because a couple of weeks ago we had on the Reverend Mother, who's a witch.
Right.
And we talked a lot on that podcast about witches perceive their craft as religious. That's how they perceive it.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us listeners can say, well, it's not my opinion, but they see it as religious.
Right.
To me, it's interesting to see how that kind of evolves out, and we either gain it. So witchcraft has gained at least some yardage on, well, this is a religious sect type thing, that they really see it as a religion, albeit they're worshiping nature, okay, which I happen to agree with, but it's just interesting to see that religion has given up on Halloween. I wonder what caused that.
Yeah, I don't know either, and because
commercialism?
It probably was the way they've now commercialized. I mean, Halloween is, let's face it, July 4th wasn't even done, which to me should be the biggest holiday of the year. It's the birthday of our great nation, right? That's my opinion. And right before 4th of July, they've already started putting Halloween stuff out.
Right. Yeah, I know, you're absolutely right.
And actually, believe it or not, they've actually got Christmas stuff out. And we're not even in Halloween yet. I mean, we're not even there yet. We still got 3 weeks.
Oh, yeah. No, you're absolutely right. It's, it is the consumerism of holidays has certainly taken over. A lot of us look at Christmas, not to get off the subject, but that it's more of a religious holiday than a commercial holiday.
Right.
And yet, most of us shop early and shop plenty for the holiday, right? So, it's interesting how that's...
Well, same with trick-or-treating. Okay, when I was a kid, we go there to the house, trick-or-treat. If they left the basket out, you grabbed one piece of candy and you went to the next house, right?
Right.
Today, you leave a basket out. The first person gets there dumps the whole basket in their bag.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so changed. When I was a kid, yes, I looked forward to ripping up Christmas presents and ripping open the packages and making a mess, throwing, the wrapping paper all over God's creation, throwing it at my brothers, having fun. But the reality of it was, the more fun I actually had was sitting down the Christmas lunch. We did lunch. We still do. 2 in the afternoon, 1:30, 2 o'clock,
Right.
That was more fun with my grandparents there. Everybody was there. The house was full of friends and family, and we had fun. Same with Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Halloween, it was trick-or-treating, and that was it. I mean, we'd dress up. We'd dress up at school. In grammar school, we had a Halloween party where everybody would sign cards and give them out to their friend. Everybody in the class. You just couldn't pick your friend. You had to send one to everybody in the class. They'd have some goodies, Halloween goodies, candy. My mother used to throw Tottos out there for that in the Christmas party at school when I was in grammar school. Tottos are little chocolate balls, not anything Halloweenish. It's an Italian thing. And then we'd do a Halloween thing, and we'd have a Halloween parade, a costume party around the school parking lot. They don't do that even in grammar school anymore.
No, they don't. You're right.
They do trunk or treats. The kids dress up.
My day in school,
What?
they used to have the school parties, and
Right.
you'd come in costume in school and stuff, in the lower grades.
Right. And once you made it to middle school, it changed. But in like kindergarten to 4th grade, I mean, that's what we did every year. And then Thanksgiving, I had a kindergarten teacher that bought turkey. So we'd dress up with head corn hats and everything else for Thanksgiving. And then we'd have a turkey dinner that half day Wednesday before leaving the school.
Right.
It was a great time, and we learned a lot. Today, you don't see that anymore. It's gone.
Well, listen, this has been a great show. I think that you've just opened up people's eyes to Halloween that are going to look at it a little differently, and I appreciate.
And we didn't even,
being a historian.
and we didn't even touch the, we didn't even touch the rest of Halloween. We just pretty much,
Well, we're going to do another show, right?
we'd have to do another show, yeah.
Show on this.
Yeah.
This is like a lot of subjects we talk on the Paranormal Zone. It's very difficult to get it all in.
It is.
1 hour. And certainly, I think it's a great time to encourage our listeners. They have my email address. I encourage people to send us feedback on our shows. I'll answer every single email you send me. So send it to paranormalnh@yahoo.com. No caps, no spaces. I will answer any and all questions. I'll take your feedback. Tom and I are very interested in figuring out what kind of shows you want to hear more of, what kind of topics you want us to deep dive into. That's what this Paranormal Zone is all about, is giving a voice to the paranormal community. And I think, too, Tom, that with all our listeners, and we are now, overseas, we're about to have on a guest from Ireland this week, which we're really looking forward to. And we've been in London, we've been, I think, Australia. So we certainly have gone, to use your phrase, over the pond.
Right.
So we encourage you to call, to send me an email if you'd like to come on the show. We don't turn down anybody. So if
No, we
you
don't.
come on the show and talk about what you do, what your hobby is, or what your craft is, or what you believe in, just send me an email. I'd love to have you on the show.
No, we would love to have everybody on the show. The goal is to get everybody we can on this show so we can listen to, and I've said this more than once, you have 10 people in the room that are paranormal investigators. You're going to have 10 different answers to the same question.
There you go. Yeah, that's why we have different paranormal teams on, because everybody has a different strategy and approach to it. So.
They do. Well, thank you, Bob.
I'll leave our listeners with this. We hope to see you at the Sandown meeting, Sandown Train Depot on October 10th. You can go to our Facebook page. It'll be posted there. I hope that we see a ton of people come in.
You there?
I'm here.
Okay. Yeah, you went dead after you said ton of people.
Okay. Yeah, I hope we see a bunch of people there. And I want to thank you for your input tonight. As usual, you did a great job.
No problem. Thank you, Bob, for joining me tonight and co-hosting this great show with me. And I want to thank everybody for listening across the pond, across the United States, across Europe, Asia, Africa. So see you all soon. I'm heading back to my crypt. Good night, everybody.
Good night.